So that looks really nice. Another thing you can do, sorry, another thing you can do is, okay, let's get into this. Another thing you can do is, you can add maybe, mm, yeah, let's do it. So another thing you can do is you can add maybe a texture or something. I have this thing called the, where is it? GI lighting sky pack. You don't really need to have this to get along. You can just take a picture of a sky or anything off the internet and that'll be fine. I just have these little presets that allow me to do it. So now we have this sky in our scene. It looks kind of like daytime or whatever, and that looks really nice. Actually, it looks more like a sunset. So I guess we're doing a sunset scene, and I'm gonna kind of go overview like nighttime and stuff like that too. So now that we have our glowstone, which are giving us like that realistic sense of our lights, and we have our sky in the scene, right? So we have a sky, we have the little lights here, but it doesn't look really like realistic and stuff, even though we don't have any post effects on like ambient occlusion. Let's just stick with this for right now. Now, what people fail to kind of realize is that we need to have a sun or a moon. It's always a necessity. Um, Regardless if you're doing an indoor scene or if you're doing outside scene, I see very I see a lot of people that don't like use like suns or use like infinite lights or whatever. Use a sun, trust me, it's really good. So what I mean by sun is just make your own sun. So let me go to projects tab. Just make this huge so when I zoom out or whatever it doesn't clip. And we're gonna put our light, we're gonna put it in this direction because that's where the sun is coming from. And we're gonna make this a spotlight. Now, why do I make this a spotlight? I make it a spotlight for a couple reasons. We want volumetric rays or volumetric lighting, and we also want it to like point in certain directions. We don't want it to always like go everywhere. We want it to like point in certain directions and stuff like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this super huge. So we're gonna first go to details and we're gonna go to fall off and do inverse square. Always do this with your lights. I explained in a couple tutorials that this is always necessary for your lights, because it makes smooth gradients. It looks a lot more realistic and it just helps lighting and everything a lot more. It makes things a lot better. And we're going to keep this just the same for right now. And we're going to go to here. Yeah. We're going to go here. Let me turn grid shading on. And we're going to turn light map off right now for this. The way to turn light map off is if you go down here and you double click there at do not delete and you double click here so you can't see it in the editor. And then if you turn this off, you should get this so that way all the lights are turning off, and then you just disable the layers so that way you can see your spotlight. So that's how you kind of disable that so that way you can see other lights, because this makes multiple lights, and once you have a lot of lights in your scene, it's hard to add more lights and still see what's going on. So it's good to always just like disable this once you got it the way you want it. So we're gonna go here and we're going to amp this up. Basically, this is gonna just take out the radius of this spotlight and it's gonna have it shine. So you can see what inverse square does, and you can see what it does without. It kind of doesn't. It's hard to see, but you can see that it doesn't really do anything now. And when I put the fall off on, then it actually has like some kind of control over that. So we're going to do that, and a normal sun would cover this whole area, so we're going to turn this up so that way it kind of covers everything, but it kind of like, you don't want it covering like everything that you have. You kind of want it to dim like the edges a little bit, but so far this is looking nice. probably gonna make it gonna make this like 2 and make it come out a little bit more. So now you have this little sun, and you have the light kind of like going, encompassing this whole area. That's nice. So now what we want to do is we're going to bring out the sun even further. Oop, not that way. We're going to bring it out like this. You want to, I mean, the further you bring out this sun, the more realistic your lighting will be, and I'll kind of explain that in a second. So we're going to bring this out pretty far. So that way it's, but we got to bring it down too. Okay. A good way to kind of like target, to keep your sun like targeted to things, is you can always like, what I always do is I always like make a little cube. Actually, you don't even have to make a cube. What you can do is you can create a camera, right? And then you can just put a target tag on your sun. This is kind of how I made my first sun preset. You put a target tag on your camera or your sun, your sunlight, and then you just put the camera as the target, and then your sun will always, or your sunlight will always target your camera. So if we look up, we can see that it's always looking at our camera. So now that we have that, we kind of want to make everything's like super dark now, and that's because our sun is super far away. So we're going to position this a little bit lower, and then we're going to continue to increase this. So we're going to go out of this camera. We're going to continue to increase the inverse square radius until it's lighting our scene again. So we're going to make this maybe like 8. Nope. So we're going to make this like maybe 9. And you just keep on increasing it. It might be a large number in like your mind. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a huge number. But just wait for it. You'll see. So I think that's lighting it pretty nice. You can see that even though this goes past it, it makes it a lot more smooth. So actually, the further you do your light, also, the further you do your sunlight or whatever light you have that's going to be your sun or moon, the further you do it, the more, I would say the smoother the transition is between your light. So you can see that, unlike before, everything's like slowly getting brighter and brighter, which is nice because that's kind of how a sun works. So I'm going to turn this up to maybe like 200 now that we have like our light kind of very nicely done, and yeah, it looks nice. Okay, so now we're gonna turn this to a, oops, that's our camera. Now we're gonna turn our light to a like a orangish yellowish tint. Now I see a lot of people, even myself included, when I made my sun preset, that go to like this deep yellow or deep orange or whatever. And like I said, that's not realistic. So unlike doing like a deep orange or yellow or whatever, always put it like right here, like where it's like sort of white, but it's not too white. And it's just like in the middle of like being white and orange, okay? And that will like slightly tint your stuff, but it's going to make things a little bit more accurate. In the end, sorry. Next, you want shadows, don't you? So a lot of people would also do like soft shadows or area shadows or whatever, but you should use either area or ray trace shadows for a sun or moon. That's it. Only for a sun or moon. For everything else, you should use maybe like soft shadows. But I've come to understand that if you use area shadows or hard shadows for a sun, they make like really like cast shadows. Like with soft shadow maps, you don't really have cast shadows. You just have like a tiny little shadow or whatever. I think maybe I should show this. So with soft shadows, you won't really see much of anything. You'll get like, you can kind of tell like there's something going on, but there's not really anything going on. With an area shadow, you'll be able to see an actual cast shadow and everything's going to look super dark, which is sort of what we want, but not really. So we can see that cast shadow is going through everything, like it's making everything dark, okay? And we can lighten up that shadow by going to here and just doing like 50% for right now. So now you can see that now we have that shadow and all this stuff is really dark still, but it's less. It's a lot less, but we can see like the cast shadows coming across from this, which is nice. Okay, and it looks like crap. It looks like crap right now, but trust me, this is going on. This is my process every time. So we're gonna finally get into like some render settings, just some basic stuff. So I usually just do 10, 10, 10. Anti-aliasing always at best 4. And then ambient occlusion. That's really all you have to do. And then I usually push my ambient occlusion like right up here. So that's really all you have to do for render settings for right now. So we'll see what that looks like. You can see it's taking its sweet, sweet time. I recommend having Magic Preview. It really helps in some cases. Speed up like what your preview might look like. So let me show you what this can do. So post effects, that's ambient occlusion. This is GI. We don't have GI. This is anti-aliasing, and this is basically like the overall quality of your scene. So if we preview it here, you can kind of see like a small preview of what's going on. And it really helps. It's not any faster than the actual render viewer. It just cuts down on like how much quality there is, I guess. So I'll be using this while we're doing this stuff. So you can see that we have that going on if we turn down our sun just a tiny bit. So we put this to like 150. And if we turn back on our light map, do that. And then we're turning on. Now you can kind of see that it's a little bit better. You can't really notice anything because it's not dark. So maybe instead of doing a daytime scene or something super bright, I can try to make this a little bit darker. Like if the sun was going down, I guess. That's how we're going to play this. So we'll just say the sun's going down and everything's getting a little bit darker. And we're going to make those cast shadows a little bit darker too, so we can see what's going on. Put those back at 100. And now we have now we have something that actually looks decent. We have lighting going on here, and we have all these dark cast shadows going on. So now what we want to do is we want to have maybe a something ambient, an ambient light of some sort. So what I mean by that is a light where we're going to put soft shadows on. Okay, and it's a little bit laggy. No, it's not laggy. It's just how far I was zoomed in. So what I mean by ambient light is depending on what you have in your background, so your sky and stuff, you want to kind of you kind of want to replicate that same lighting like how GI would. So normally in a scene like this, GI would take this sky and be like, oh, okay, this color is here, this color is here. We're going to have this bounce on your scene, and we're going to give your scene some of that lighting. And it takes a long time for that to happen. So most people just fake it. And so that's what I'm going to teach you guys right now. Basically, you just take like maybe the most prominent color you see. So the most prominent color I see is like this reddish color. So we're going to take that. Excuse me. And we're going to do some fall off. So that's going to make this tiny little circle here. And we're going to up the fall off so that way it covers our entire scene. Oops. So we're going to up the fall off so it covers the entire scene. 8. Nope. So we're going to do 18 maybe. Okay. And that's a little bit too bright. That's fine. And I usually put, oops, just messing all this stuff up. I usually put the ambient light above everything because that's our sky. Our sky is above everything. And I usually just put it really high so that way it sort of has some kind of influence, but not really. So I usually just put it like right there. So just above your scene. Just enough to light it a little bit. So if I came in here and I amped the intensity, you would see that it's lighting just the top and stuff. So we're going to put this back to 100. And another thing we do is put on ambient illumination. Now what this will do is it's going to... Let me darken this just a tad bit. Okay. So now if we go to... Oops, wrong tab. Wrong tab again. Wrong tab. Where's my... Oh, there it is. Okay. So now what you can see is that everything's being lit. We'll see here. Now you can see everything's kind of being lit, and we kind of have like this default sense of everything again, which isn't kind of what I want. But we have the properties now to go in and kind of make the shadows really like... We have more control over the shadows. So if I made this 200%, you can kind of see what's going on. It's shading like a lot of different areas and stuff like that. If we make this 250, you can see that it's going to be like really black patches in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just have this at 150. Okay. So now we have our soft shadows in on ambient. Now you don't have to do this. I think it's... Some people do this, but you can also do this, and it might be more realistic. Whichever way you want. One gives you like a brighter sense of things, and one gives you a little bit darker. And let me lighten up the shadows. So it just depends. If you want something a little bit lighter, something you can like control a little bit more, you can do ambient illumination. If you want something with like, I don't know, something that's a little bit darker, something more realistic, you can do it this way. I'll go over more into depth what ambient illumination might do and what you can get off of that or get from that in a little bit. But for right now, that's looking okay, and something weird is happening there. So far we have something that looks like this. And some would say that that doesn't look that great, and it kind of doesn't. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look into here, and we're going to look up torch, and we're going to apply this same texture to the torches in the scene, same texture to the redstone torches, same texture to the... And that's it. Just anything that's bright and gives off light, we want to apply this brightness texture to. Redstone wire would be one. Redstone torch, redstone lamp. So now we have that going. We have some of our textures being a little bit more lighter. Next thing we probably want to do is add some volumetrics with our sunlight. So we're going to do that now. So we're going to go here. We're going to go to volumetric light. And what that's going to do is nothing for right now. And we're going to turn off ambient occlusion so that way we can get a faster preview. Now everything looks super dark. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play with our light, our volumetric light. So right now it's at 500, which is super low. And we're going to turn this to like probably about the same that we have our this right here. So right here in inverse we have 1000 or this number right here. Yeah, because I can't number right now. I think it's 179,000, and we're just gonna put that on here and see what happens. There we go. So now it should, theoretically or not, make everything bright. I don't know what's going on. And we're gonna turn this to like 300. Okay. Okay, I think. Hold up. Hold up. Wait. Let's see. Put this to 2. Nope. For some reason, our sunlight is further than the actual decay light, which is weird. So we're just gonna amp this all the way up to like 8, okay? Because we want this whole thing to be like super bright. Again, this is one of the things that I said, that sometimes you have to experiment when your light is really far away. It takes like, you're gonna run into a lot of big numbers, and you shouldn't be scared about doing that. You should just try to. What I'm trying to do right now is make sure that this light. Okay, you can kind of see it, but not really. Hold up. So what I'm trying to do is trying to make this volumetric light reach past here, but for some reason, now right here is where the decaying light is, right? And all the way back here is where the volumetric is, and for some reason it's not like reaching all the way, which is very unusual because usually it does. Okay, you can see here that it is, but it's not like it wasn't before for some reason. It's weird. Okay, so for here, you should see that it is going through. Yeah, okay. So this is one of the things I also wanted to show, that having a sense of volumetric light can also give you that fading effect. It's really nice and stuff. One thing I wanted to do is turn this to like 5. This is your sample distance. This gives you like the rays. And we're going to turn this to maybe like 150 because it's way too bright. And so we're going to do this. And you can kind of see that we're getting sort of that volumetric look, which is what we want. And we're probably going to change the position of the sun. Right now it's like right here, and we're probably going to move it like over here. So now we have something that looks pretty decent so far. It's not yet done, but it looks way better than what we started with. Even though it's just really me rambling around about stuff. Please have patience with how I commentate, because I'm not the best. So we're gonna move our light like maybe, I wanted to say maybe lower, but I kind of want it a little bit higher so that way there's more of a point, I guess. So we're gonna move it like slightly over here, and we're gonna click render, and now we have like a little bit more of that effect. So that's looking pretty nice. It's looking pretty decent. We're kind of getting to where we want with this. Another thing you can do is now apply the physical sky and then tweak those settings. So right now I think I had it like really weird before. I think it's alright right now, but you can kind of see that it blends in with a lot of the stuff. It blends in with the little volumetric light that you're getting from the sun, and it looks really kind of atmospheric at the same time. I think I have it, yeah, it's turned up a little bit. So what I would say is just keep it at like the default settings, unless you notice something you want to change. Again, if you want more saturation, like you want the colors to be regular as they're fading out, so you want like this red to still like keep its tint, you would turn this or this up depending on which one. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, this is like default. With default, it should be just regular atmospheric. It shouldn't be so blue as it was before. So looks really, really nice. And another thing you can do is you can just turn up the world scale ratio if you want it to be more pronounced, and you'll see that the back is gonna get a lot more faded. Um, but also watch out because sometimes it clips. Sometimes the back will really like have a super dramatic like cutout look to the background. So just watch out for that.